What's going on, guys?
We're here.
Tom Westerholm with Maz Live, along with Fred Katz. We are at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas, catching some Summer League. We've been a long couple of days with the Celtics so far. They had a shoot around yesterday morning, which was a tough hit. But it's been been entertaining so far. What are your initial impressions?
Well, number one is that it is impossible to find a place to do a YouTube live here. We can't find it anywhere, so we're currently at the Hawks are trailing the Blazers by 7 with 5.5 minutes to go.
Section 207, if anybody's here.
In the second period, and we just went to the upper deck where nobody's sitting. We're sitting here. I imagine that all these upper decks are going to be completely filled when the Lakers play a big game.
Yep.
But you can appreciate the PA guy, whose name is Dick Calvert, by the way.
Yeah, you wrote a really nice story about him.
Well, I'm plugging my own stuff now. Anyway, first takeaway, Jabari Bird.
Yeah,
for sure. Jabari Bird was very good in their first Summer League game. I think 14 and 8 in that game, 2 rebounds away from a double-double. He was so good in that game too against Denver. He was so great in that, the way he was scoring without shooting jump shots. I don't think he made this music is hilarious. This is a ridiculous environment for this, but Jabari Bird was really good.
Yes. Yeah, he was. And I mean, you mentioned the cutting. That was the big thing that he really showed yesterday. And he's just so athletic. I mean, when he gets up in the air and he he just kind of waits for everybody else to come down and then he finishes off his layup, or, he dunks it on somebody's head, which he did a couple of times yesterday. It was really interesting to watch him, and really interesting especially because the Celtics have a decision to make about him. He's a restricted free agent. There's apparently some interest with the Timberwolves and with the Sixers. There's been some people inquiring about him a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see, how they end up going about that decision. But I know from what we've seen so far, it kind of seems like he might have a roster spot.
And something to look out for too with Jabari Bird specifically is not just how his performance affects him, it's how it affects other guys too.
Right.
Daniel Tice's contract is not guaranteed, Shimmy Ojeley's contract is not guaranteed, and Abdel Nader's contract is not guaranteed right now. Imagine we're going to bring
guaranteed, but
right, not fully.
Yeah.
Imagine they're going to bring back Ojeley. Imagine they're going to bring back Tice. Tice's contract guarantees tomorrow. The other 2 guys are on the 15th of July. But you look at a guy like Nader, and they're at 14 if those 3 guys guarantee. Marcus Smart is still out there. That doesn't include Marcus Smart.
Yep.
And you wonder if they want to find a way to get Bird onto the roster. If that's something they actively want to do, it could come at the expense of maybe Nader's roster spot or something like that. That's a real plausibility. And with Bird being restricted, he could always come back if he wants to on a 2-way again. If he picks up the qualifying offer, then he would end up just playing out next year on a 2-way contract as well, because that's how those restricted 2-way guys work. So it affects more than just him, just because of the way the Celtics roster is constructed right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that was a conversation that was going on last year as well. The Celtics wondering whether they wanted to guarantee Jabari Bird and maybe cut an Abdel Nader, because they only had, they would have had to cut somebody to get somebody else on the roster. So that's a conversation that's been happening for a few months now, which it's kind of interesting to see it coalescing here at Summer League around Bird's really good play.
Before we move on, you think he can, let's say, for the sake of hypotheticals, let's say that he is on their roster next year. He's not shooting threes. He doesn't shoot threes. He shot them at a good percentage in college, but college 3-point percentage is not always going to translate to the NBA.
Yep.
Do you think that he can be an effective NBA player purely as a cutter and a slasher who just isn't even really going to take threes at all?
No, I really don't. I mean, I think, especially at his position, when you're a shooting guard, when you're a wing player like that, and you're not an elite Andre Roberson type defender, I feel like your offensive versatility needs to be a little bit more than just a really smart cutter. I do think, Larinaga mentioned last night. He said he's a great cutter. He's a great shooter. His defense is the thing that we're working on, and I do think that there is a sense that he will be able to shoot, that he can shoot. I think he shot 32% from 3 in the G League last year, which isn't great, but it's also not a non-shooter. It's like a guy who, took some, probably missed some, could probably improve, but maybe he gets to that point during his career.
I wonder if he were to be in the league, how the Celtics would, or you know what? Actually, I don't really wonder it. I can kind of guess how the Celtics would handle his 3-point shooting. they just encourage guys to shoot
They
threes.
do. They 100%
They
do.
really want guys to shoot threes. I think even if he shoots 30%, they're going to be like, we want you taking 4 to 5 threes per 36 minutes. Like, get up your threes. The spacing is more important than the percentage. Just get them up even if you're making 30%. And, like, the G League is like, I don't know, somebody once described to me as the G League, it's a league of 37% three-point shooters.
Right.
You go down there and you just shoot 37%, no matter how good of a three-point shooter you are. Everyone shoots 37% from three.
Sure.
You could be great, you could be terrible, you're going to shoot 37% from three. So G League three-point percentage, even though it's the same three-point line, defenses are so erratic.
Right.
And it's not just because of the quality of defenders and the fact that the G League is filled with kind of a lot of athletes who rely on their athleticism and not a lot of else.
Right.
It's also because guys are cycled in so much. Teams have really simplistic defensive schemes because it's just the ways that they can cycle guys in and out more easily. And guys are super unfamiliar with team schemes as well. So
Definitely.
like defenses just aren't good. You end up getting a lot of spot up threes. So G League three-point percentage is not always great. You see guys come up from the G League, shoot 37% in the G League, and they end up not doing it well. So that's always something. But you have to imagine if he's on the roster, the Celtics still want him getting up like a really solid, whatever the three-point percentage is, a really solid three-point rate.
And I mean, that helps his cutting because, you know, obviously if a guy's going to close out to you, then he can, you know, he even said last night, he's like, I think I cut a little bit too much. I think it takes away from my three-point
Said he
opportunities.
cuts himself out of threes.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that he'll get more cutting opportunities if he's just shooting threes. Like you said, take away the percentage, take away whether they're going in. If he's shooting them, that opportunity is going to be there. One guy who we have not had much of an opportunity to see so far is Robert Williams. Went down with banged knees with a Sixers player in the first game, 6 minutes in. The Celtics called it a knee contusion, which was kind of funny because a little bit later he told us all that he had tendonitis, which was not something that had been, you know, reported by the team or anybody else around the team. So dealing with some tendonitis, dealing with that, you know, knee soreness. They sat him out last night. Any thoughts on Big Rob here in the initial going?
No, I mean, his medicals were a concern with teams. People talk about his actual reputation as a reason that he fell, and that was obviously part of it. But his medicals were a concern for some teams too, and he had the knee stuff, and he had some other stuff too. So I think that was part of it. And it's not like the Celtics were unaware of the tendonitis until we became officially aware of it when he mentioned it. There's not that much to analyze. He didn't start the first Summer League game, which doesn't mean anything at all.
At all.
There's nothing to read into. And then he came in at a normal time when a bench guy would come in.
Yep.
And
he was behind a couple of guys who were in the league before him, so that was.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
They're going to start Ojale over him.
Yep.
Like, it makes sense. Like, he came in at a normal time, looked like he was going to play regular minutes, and got hurt 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean,
he's
very athletic.
He's very athletic.
Jumped really high. He dunked once. Got a huge rebound, just leaping over guys. Got long arms. Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, you know, you don't take much away from Summer League anyway, and obviously you don't take anything away from 6 minutes in Summer League. So we'll move on. Ojale, you mentioned him. Talked a little bit about how he's been. Really struggled last night from the field. I think he hit a three toward the end, and you could just see him kind of go like, where was that the whole game? But yeah, I mean, what have been your impressions of him so far?
I think he's looked really good defensively. Oh man, we're getting loud right now. We're getting really loud. I don't even know if people can hear me. I think he's been really good defensively. We'll start with the positive. I think he's been good. Celtics have been letting him switch onto a bunch of different guys, and that makes sense. Like, he's good at that. That's what he's going to do. They like him as a switchy defender and a versatile guy, and that's how he's going to make it. Like, if he makes 35% of his threes, he's good.
Yes, certainly.
He's got to work on not just the accuracy, but also his release. His release is slow. So those are two things that he's got to work on, and he's super open about it. Yeah. Every time, you know, guys at Summer League get the same questions over and over again, and there are like 98 Celtics beat writers, and we all repeat other people's questions, and we all come in at different times.
Sometimes multiple times in the same scrum.
Exactly. We all come in at different times, and Mark Murphy will ask a question, and then Jay's gonna come in, and Jay's gonna ask the same question 2 seconds later. They're all asking the same thing, and every time Semi Ojale, when people ask him what he's working on, He wants to work on his offense. He wants to work on his. He hasn't phrased it like this, but it sounds like he's trying to work on his offensive feel and get better at that. Yeah. And I think it's clear that's what he's trying to do. His feel was good in the first game. He said really 6 of 13 from the field, I think.
Yeah.
It was totally off in the second game, but like that's okay. That's what this is for.
Yeah, definitely. I thought Larinaga had a really interesting quote talking about him. He said, he's a worker, and sometimes you can work so much that you aren't confident, because like you're more putting pressure on yourself because you put in all this work and you feel like, oh, I can make these shots. I should be hitting these shots. Why am I not hitting these shots? And I thought that was really interesting because, Shemi is a worker. I mean, you can look at his body and know that he's a worker. But he's really got to hit his threes. He's really got to work on his feel a little bit. Offensively, we already knew he could defend. We already knew he could switch. We already knew he could play a little center while switching onto smaller guys and, defending the pick and roll that way. And I don't know that we've necessarily seen a whole lot that tells us that it's going to be different next year. But he's still a player who I think is going to be. I do think he's definitely got a roster spot. I do think that they'll be able to use him at times this season.
Yeah, and you can use him in like Brad Stevens likes to use him in like little creative ways for short bursts.
Yeah,
and he's good for that now. Somebody puts out a funky lineup, and Stevens feels like he can kind of counter that with a similar funky lineup. And Ojeleye is good with funky defensive lineups because you can kind of start him on 3s and 4s optimally.
Yeah. And
then use him to change onto other guys if and when necessary too. So that's a good piece for them to have if he's going to be their 13th man or 12th man or whatever it's going to end up being. And he's obviously a really cheap piece on the second year of a second-round contract.
Yep.
So it makes sense that they're trying to develop into this, and if he can become a 35% three-point shooter and maybe a little bit of a finisher, and improve that feel, like all of a sudden you've got like a good 9th man that you've internally developed, and another piece that they found in the draft.
And I think that feel, that sort of like finishing around the rim a little bit, I think that has been, if there's anything that's looked a little better at Summer League than it did even last year at Summer League, last year during the season, certainly, that looks a little bit better. I mean, he looks like I think he had a Euro step in like the first game. He had like one ridiculous hook shot that he just like hucked over the side of his head. But he just does look a little more comfortable around the rim, and I think that would also help him. He was one of the best scorers on a tournament SMU team. Like he's not a non-scorer or defense-only guy, or at least that's not how he projects. So I think that the Celtics could be a little bit encouraged by that as well.
How do we feel about Yabu's dunk?
I was going to transition to Yabu. Yabu's dunk was amazing. How do we feel about Yabu's performance so far?
He's in and out.
Yeah.
He's like very in and out. He has moments where you're like, that looks good.
Yeah.
Like that's what you want. Like when he'll spot up and he'll do it in rhythm and he'll drain a three and you're like, that looked good.
Yeah.
Like that's what you want out of him. I wonder if it's a guarantee that he is going to finish out his rookie contract.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it's a guarantee.
Yeah.
Like, especially with the Celtics so unaware or uncertain of what their tax situation is going to be in 1920, because you got potentially Marcus Smart's second free agency coming up.
Yep.
You got Kyrie coming off the books. You got Horford able to come off the books.
Yep.
You got Terry Rozier restricted. Like, they could have an unbelievable tax bill. And you saw teams do it this year. The Thunder did it with Josh Eustace.
Sure.
The Warriors did it with Looney.
Yep.
Those guys had fourth-year options that the teams declined because they thought we might be in the tax majorly next year. The Warriors knew they'd be in the tax.
Yeah.
The Thunder thought they might be in the tax depending on Paul George's decision and some other things. And they thought they have to prepare for that. And those guys were going to make some $2.2 or $2.4 million or whatever it was in their cases. And if you can shave off an extra $1.5 million on payroll by signing a minimum guy, and especially if you sign a 10-year guy, then only a portion of that counts against the tax.
Right.
Like if you can do that, you're, depending on how far into the tax you are, you're saving yourself multiple millions because of all those tax dollars you're saving that you don't have to pay for. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Celtics were thinking a similar thing heading into 18-19 when you have to make this decision way more in advance.
And I think I don't know how fair it is to Yabusele, but I just don't think he's been very good. Like, I don't think that they've seen much improvement from him, in the areas that they would like to see him improve. They wanted him to be, sort of a versatile guy he's so versatile because he's supposed to be kind of like fleet-footed despite his enormous size, or fleet-footed for his enormous size, perhaps. And he was supposed to be able to stretch the floor, and he was supposed to be, I think, a little bit more of a. I think they were hoping he was going to be a little bit more of a ball handler who could pass and who could, sort of facilitate the offense. And I mean, you've seen little flashes of it here and there. I just don't know that you've seen enough of it to justify, like you were saying, all the financial implications that could come with a guy entering, a fourth-year option.
And here's the thing: if you don't pick it up, it's not like you can't bring him back.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
You're capped on how much you can pay for him. You can only pay him as much as what that rookie option would have been, which I forget what the number is in his case. But you can still bring him back for up to that number. And it's not a commentary on him. If the Celtics don't have a precarious and uncertain tax situation, they pick that up.
Right.
Rookie options almost never get not picked up unless you got like an RJ Hunter situation where an organization is just totally out on a dude.
Yeah.
Or if you have a situation like this, which is becoming more and more common in today's NBA, where so many teams are close to or well into the tax after the 2016 offseason threw everything off. So I don't know which way they're going to go with it, but obviously I think it's worth discussing. We're discussing it.
Definitely, yeah. So are there any other guys, just like none of these guys are probably going to make the roster. Anybody else that you just kind of like from this Celtics Summer League team so far?
You're really putting me in a position to be mean right now. Because, like, no.
Fair enough. So,
Martin is fun.
Hassan Martin's pretty fun.
He's very fun. I don't think, like, that actually means anything. But I enjoy watching him.
Yeah.
Who else from general in Summer League? Not Celtics stuff. Don't limit. I have a guy who I'm like, I have no idea what he is, but I'm obsessed with him. I want to hear if you have one.
All right, so, we're actually watching the Trailblazers right now. I've been an Anthony Simons guy for a while. Obviously, he's a first-round pick, so he's not some random, I think he's going to make it. If he makes it, it's not going to be a great referendum on me or anything, but I like him. I think he's, very shifty. I think he's super athletic. I like that he can shoot. So I'm a big Anthony Simons guy. Let me see. Well, give me your random guy, and then I'll.
Not random.
Right.
But man, Mitchell Robinson is so fun.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he is so fun. Like his arms are so long.
Yeah.
No one had seen him play basketball. I was talking to a GM yesterday about him, and I was like, man, Robinson is so fun. I was just really excited to see him play because I had literally never seen him play. And this is a GM. He goes, I've barely seen him play. No one has really seen him play.
Well, unless you lived in New Orleans and you happened to be in the region where he went to high school, right. You probably didn't see him.
I mean, if you're unaware of him, he didn't play college ball. He hadn't played a basketball game, like any sort of organized basketball game, in like 14 months.
Right.
Before Summer League. The Knicks drafted him in the second round. He is this unbelievable athlete.
Yeah.
He has like no torso. His waist just turns into a neck. It's just all legs, and his arms go down to his knees.
Yeah.
And he is tall as hell, and he just has the dimensions of like everything you would want. I mean, he's scrawny.
Yeah, he needs to put on some weight.
Other than that, in terms of just arms and legs and athleticism, it's just so intriguing. And he ends games ended the game yesterday by windmill dunking after the buzzer and stuff.
After the buzzer.
If you have a center who can do that, he had some remarkable blocks. He had some terrible defensive plays, just having no idea where to be on the floor, which is honestly fine. He's a second-round pick in Summer League, and it was the first time he played an organized basketball game in over a year. That's to be expected.
Yep.
It would be weird and shocking if that didn't happen. Like, he would have to be Tim Duncan for that not to happen to him. But he had moments where you're like, oh, you had no idea what you were doing. But everything, he was trash talking with John Collins.
He and John Collins were really getting into it.
Everything that he did, I was like, this is just making this game so entertaining.
Yeah.
And if you're the Knicks, at least at the very beginning, you gotta play him. Like, the Knicks are gonna be terrible. Porzingis is hurt.
Yep.
You gotta see what he is.
Yep.
Maybe if he just proves to be totally and completely unplayable, then you send him to Westchester and he plays in the G League.
Right.
But like, you gotta play him.
It's doing you no damage to play him.
Yeah. Although this is the same team that didn't play Ntilikina last year, so
their summer league team is fun.
It
We were talking about them. They have Ntilikina. Kevin Knox looked really good.
It looks great.
Mitchell Robinson obviously was really fun, and then there were a couple other guys too who really
Justin Harper's fun.
Justin Harper's pretty fun. I mean, the game we watched yesterday was Hawks-Knicks, and it was just high flying. Like, everybody was dunking, everybody was swatting shots. Like,
Hawks are fun too.
Yeah.
Because no matter what Trae Young is doing, he's on. I mean, I didn't cover Trae Young when I was in Oklahoma, but I saw him play all the time.
Right.
I mean, he was next to Russell Westbrook, maybe definitely the most popular basketball player in the state.
Yeah.
I mean, he was unbelievably popular, and I was writing for the newspaper in Norman until 2 months ago.
Right.
And so I've seen Trae Young play a lot, and I'll tell you, he is crazy fun. Like, whether he's missing shots or making shots, he's unbelievably flashy passer.
Yeah.
Everything he does is fun. So the Hawks team is really fun too.
Well, and even if he's missing shots, he's still taking obscene shots that you're just like, oh, what if that goes in? Like, it's still exciting. Even if if a guy's pulling up from 30 off the dribble off balance, it's entertaining as hell one way or the other.
No one has ever accused that dude of lacking confidence. Ever.
Yeah. Anything else you want to touch on here? We're here through Saturday. Friday. We're here through Friday. It's hopefully we see some Robert Williams. I don't know if we will or not.
Yeah. You know what? If you're the Celtics, like,
you might just shut him down.
Why not?
You really might just shut him down.
What's the point?
To give us something to write about is how I feel about it. But
if it's dealing with tendinitis, I covered a dude this year, Andre Robertson, who had tendinitis in his left knee, and it weakens the knee.
Yep.
And then he ends up rupturing the left patellar tendon, which is where he had the tendinitis. You just don't risk it in pointless summer league.
Yeah.
You just don't do it.
Definitely. All right, man. Well, we will try to do another one maybe later this week. We'll talk to you guys soon. Make sure to follow us, masslive.com/Celtics. Follow our YouTube channel here, and we will talk to you later. If we can figure out how to shut this thing down.
We can't do that.
Is it that?
I don't know. This is a great ending.